Here we go. I'm Dr. Christopher Kevin Slaton, your host. And what we're talking about is very, very important. It's self-help. And the reason why we're talking about self-help because it's a science. And I'm talking about self-help because many of my participants come to me for help because they have a problem moving through contact. And one might laugh when I say moving through contact, but social contact is a specific level of engagement in the environment because that external person to you is an environmental influence on your receive path functioning. And so we have this defense mechanism, all of us, and it's called a state of mind. I call it the body-mind because your body is physical and the mind is a reflection of how you see things from the outside in. Meaning, when I talk about sense and receive path research, I'm talking about how do you get beyond a sense of self. You know, people say that people are caught up on themselves because they don't make the conversion to a sense of feel for self, which relates to other people and the environment. Therefore, they seem to be more self-centered. That's a social cognitive affect. That's the body-mind that I talk about. So if you go back and look at literature and look at behaviorism and look at Aristotle, theorists and philosophers that are talking about the mind, they are telling you that there is no such thing because a brain exists inside the human body, but the argument was, but you can't prove it. But the existence of something higher than just self, okay, we're talking about spirituality, but calm down. Because we're talking about the learning self. How do you learn through the crisis of self where you're heavily influenced through your social contact and environmental influences, and people say you can't think for yourself. And what they're saying is that the environment stimulus forces you to respond and behave a certain way, and they know it because they can see it on your body. The way you hold your hands, the way you gleam from your eyes, the way you move, act, interact. Those are all physical demonstrations of something that's taking place, dealing with the body, but now I'm talking about the brain. Because all I want you to understand is that when you're in this sense of self mode, you have to know that your receive path functions is how you change a behavior state where people can predict your responses based upon your physics. And what I'm saying is you learn to allow the negative flow of energy to move beyond social cognitive to the inner processing, neural processing of the contact interaction. So now the environmental influence is being processed and you're not just reacting because you're trying to ignore the pain, hurt, and sadness that you experience from the environmental stimulus. It could be me. You have bad feelings towards me. So instead of adjusting your receive path to accept my flow, you turn away, you cut it off. And what do you give me? A state of mind, a physical reflection of what you're experiencing. And it's confusing. Why? Because there's no thought in it. Because the thought has been isolated. There's thinking, someone else is thinking, and that emotion that you're exhibiting, that's their thinking because they're impacting your receive path and you're highly emotional and volatile. So I'm talking about three things: being difficult, I need, and trouble, because you can't understand how to accept the flow of energy, action, and feelings into the conversion process with the brain through your sense of feel for self, other people, relativity. That's how you calm down. You don't be so self-centered as much as you realize the confluence between self-contact and interaction with another person and the brains involved. So you're negotiating fact from fiction, and at the same time, reflection is building. And that forward feed that I talk about, that's your brain, bringing new energy, action, and feelings to help you discern fact from fiction. Am I just hurting myself, or Is my defense mechanism appropriate to the challenge that I feel I'm confronting at this point in time? We're talking about sensory organization. I'm a human system scientist, so what I'm talking about is I study brain, body, and sense systems because self-help is required when you're trying to learn how to move through the crisis of self. Many people inside your network have this problem. They just can't get out of the way. They can't get out of their own way, and people are laughing. But that's because they're afraid of change, because when you process negative energy, you change the way you receive that information, unless you want to continue to be ignorant, and then you become compromised by the emotional flow caught up in your sense path. So your states of mind are emerging and becoming more and more static as a physical behavior pattern of resistance. So you come across the person, you say, well, what's up? They look at you like, what do you mean, what's up? What's up with you? It could be your husband, wife, cousin, friend, and they love you, but they can't get beyond how they feel. And you have nothing to do with the way they feel, but this is their state of mind. It's a static state. So not anyone who has contact with them has experienced this negative flow of energy. And what am I saying to you? I'm saying the receive path is not being influenced as a feedback loop, because that's the purpose of the receive path. You have that negative energy, you allow yourself to participate in the act to learn how to live through the pain, hurt, and sadness of this person long enough to reflect. And now the brain manufactures new energy, action, and feeling to negate that negative flow. Now, what are you doing? Self-learning. Why are you self-learning? Because the brain has built-in defense mechanisms to protect you. The brain's just not going to go insane because you have external influences. You go insane when you don't know how to move through the crisis of self. But as you learn how to move through the crisis of self, you are learning how to interact and engage with your appropriate defense mechanisms of the brain. And we call that brain talk because you can hear it. But if you ignore it, then how do you experiment with learning how to move through introspection to reality, where it's measurable because you have contact interaction from another person in the environment? Then you have your brain's appropriate responses that you can calculate how you handle that emotion. What are you thinking about? Man, I can tell you right now, when it happened last week, I did this, but today, man, I hit home runs all day. Because where I used to get so upset and just lash back out, didn't happen. Because I'm learning how to focus the flow of energy, action, and feelings through my receive path. So now, when something happens, I'm already sending forward feed. Yes, that's your sense of feel for self. You can talk like that. That's brain talk. What are you talking about? How you learn through a sense of feel for self and the brain leads the body, that's what we're talking about. My body is no longer out of control. So externally, when someone looks at me, they may think I'm soft, but that's because I'm processing and I don't want to appear to be negative. I want to appear to be open to the flow of contact interaction. Doesn't mean I'm soft, it means I'm ready and I'm fluid. I'm adjusting, adapting, so if I gotta get tough, I'm tough. I'm ready. Oh, we're talking about how the brain works. And now we're talking about healing time because now you're creating inner space for you to continue to evolve. I said evolve because the opposite is true. When you live through the sense path and it's blocked, you don't grow. You're caught up in a behavior pattern and you're trying to defend who and what you think you are. Whereas you don't know that you are more than and continue to be more than, and that's why the brain and you continue to talk back. So you're right. And your literature, like my literature, have you read it? It's high level. Brain talk. That's how my brain talks to me. I'm talking to you. That's the signs of care I'm sharing with you. Do you feel my feedback as I'm talking to you here? We're talking about brain science, but social academic learning because that's where I'm at. I'm an educator. And what I'm saying to you, you improve your sense path so then you can begin to test these practices: reading, writing, talking, acting, performing to the brain. And let's not forget drawing. Now, when I draw, yes, when I draw, it all comes together because I have the energy, action, and feelings moving through me, and whatever is being created is reality-based, and it confirms what I thought. Now, remember, when you draw something, you understand what you're drawing. Someone else's interpretation you're okay with because they don't see the world you do. And this is what makes it so significant, because you are creating that release mechanism, that defense mechanism. And that's why you sign it at the bottom to let someone know this came from me. Now, can you explain it? This is Dr. Slaton Live. I'm talking about healing time. I'm talking about why I do this work. I'm talking about why children and parents in crisis continue to interact with me, and I continue to interact with them because it's self-help. They're helping me heal me. I'm helping them heal themselves through me. That is a sense of feel for self in relation to other people and the environment. So now it's healing time. So you can leave your home and feel more comfortable interacting, because that's what we're talking about. How do I feel more comfortable when I leave my home and interact with this chaos out there in the environment and still remain on top of my game, unchained by the negative flow of energy that's constantly moving through me? And I have to be, no, you don't have to be ugly. No, you don't have to be ugly. That's what I'm talking about. You don't have to have an ugly state of mind. No, you look clear, plain, and simple because your defense mechanisms are on, and you do not lose your ability or capacity to defend yourself physically, if necessary. But you don't ask someone because you're meeting them with a level of anxiety. Bring it on. There's no thought in that. That's a behavior pattern. This is Dr. Slaton Live. I hope you stick with me. I'll be back shortly. Real talk, brain talk. Get a copy. Amazon.com. Website, drslatonlive.com. Get your copy today. Thank you.